Welcome to the Roundtable for the 31st of October. I'm Rudyard Griffiths. We're doing something different on today's show. We're bringing in David Coletto of Abacus Data and Amanda Galbraith of the Oyster Group to co-host the Roundtable with me. Hey guys, great to be in conversation with you.
Hey,
Thanks for
Rudyard.
having us.
Your normal host, our mutual friend Sean Spear, is doing a solid. His flights got delayed out of Toronto last night, and he is driving right now back to New York to be a good dad, to be there with his young kids for Halloween. So, Sean, this one's for you. Guys, let's jump right into first off, budget. We have everyone weeks, months now of kind of speculation about this budget. Let me come to you first, David, as our resident pollster. What are Canadians' expectations? Is this budget genuinely being thought of by Canadians as this important seminal kind of hinge moment, I think was what our finance minister recently tried to describe it as?
I'm not sure that most people see it as this really critical event, in part because I don't think most people are paying that close attention to it. But I do think that the government has laid down markers that suggest this is going to be an important moment. The prime minister, even in a speech last week, laid out that more detail would be there on his economic plan, on how he was going to protect Canadians and get us through this moment. So I think there are some pretty high expectations on what might be there. I think there's probably, and I've done polling on this, there's confusion over what this budget really is meant to do. Is it going to cut and get our deficit down? Is it going to invest? I think the austerity times investment framing has I think confused people. And look, I don't think they're very much in the mood for deep cuts at the moment. We released a poll just today that shows people want to see the budget deficit reduced, which is going to probably shock them when they see it go up, but they don't want to. I think a story of draconian cuts probably doesn't connect with the mood of the country right now. So yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see. We'll do some polling post budget. Did people even pay attention to it? Do they know much of the detail? But more importantly, what's the theme that really sticks coming out of it? Because I think the government has flipped a lot on what they want that theme to be when people digest it.
So, Amanda, as our resident communications expert, what do you think the top line takeaway that the Carney government wants out of the budget, and what one do they want to try to avoid?
I don't know. And I don't know because they've been so ineffective at communicating and laying the ground for the budget. We talked on the Hub podcast, politics podcast a couple weeks ago, that they needed to have a big, kind of maybe they do a big speech, right? Sort of like an address to the nation, which the prime minister then did. And it was so rambly, 34 minutes long. It was all over the map. And I think that's reflected in the polling David talked about. And then David did additional polling and said, hey, did you see it? 1 out of 5 Canadians knew about it. Didn't even know what the content of it was, but knew about it. So I have no idea what this government wants out of their budget. If I could speculate, I would assume they would want to, investing in key areas that matter to Canadians, trying to make life a little more affordable without rolling out these big giant programs. I think we've seen them try to do that, repurpose existing programs, change taxation policy so it automatically rolls some Canadians into getting existing programs and services. So I think they're going to try and do that, while also kind of nodding to cuts. But it feels a bit like they're trying to do a Goldilocks here, and I think it's going to end up either being too hot or too cold for most Canadians, is what it feels like to me. And also, just candidly, what I'm hearing from folks inside Ottawa is, this is the prime minister's first budget. He's been out of the country. He's still out of the country as we speak. He's not been yes, he's steering the budget, but it's really hard to do that from afar. So everyone I talk to says the budget is a mess. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see what happens on Tuesday.
And just one more point. I mean, what we're hearing is there's going to be a lot in it, not just what the fiscal plan is for the government, but its climate competitiveness plan, its immigration plan. So how do you land something that is so complicated and complex, and you could probably have dozens of stakeholders finding something they really don't like in it because there's so much there. So this really does feel like a bomb kind of ready, waiting to go off that doesn't actually help the government at all. So we'll see if they're able to pull something pretty remarkable off on Tuesday.
So what do you think the strategy here, Amanda, with regards to what David just said? Is it to kind of flood the zone? Like we're just going to push so much stuff out so fast, and yeah, good luck trying to nail us down on anything. It's going to be 1,000 dancing hands.
You could argue it maybe would be flood the zone, but to flood the zone, you have to have someone out there constantly communicating the mess, right? All the different issues all the time. And that's not what we see from this government. The prime minister tends to appear, make proclamations, and then disappear for a week and a half and just assume everybody's figured it out or read it. And I think that's the problem, right? He'll send his finance minister or other folks out selectively to echo, but I don't find them being as effective as penetrating as he is. And I think part of that is they've conditioned Canadians and all of us in the media is as the government of one. All powers, all decisions go through him. So we don't credence those other pieces. So I think that could be the strategy. I think honestly part of it is that this government is so ambitious and wants to get so many things done so quickly that they actually see these as like technical bureaucratic workman-like documents as opposed to how we've been conditioned to see them, which is yes they are a budget but they are a communications tool to indicate to the public this is what we're doing, this is the kind of government we're going to be, these are the supports you're going to receive. And I actually don't think that's what we're going to see on Tuesday. I think we're going to see a very different document and a very different approach than we've seen in maybe over a decade, like maybe probably predating Harper, because underneath when Flaherty came in, he was the first one that took the fall economic statement and we turned it into a whole hoopla. Before it used to be just something you just tabled in Parliament. So I think we may see some kind of effort to return to that, but my guess is the complexities, to David's point, trying to be all things to all people, means there's going to be a lot to pull on and chew on. So sectors will have areas, but I think the broad message to Canadians, I'll be curious if like invest more, spend less. I don't know what that means. David tells me people actually hear it, so perhaps that will be successful for them.
Yeah. You're listening and watching to Amanda Galbraith and David Coletto, the two stars of our Hub Politics podcast. Sean Speer is away this week on the Roundtable, making a heroic drive home from Toronto to New York in the rain to be there for Halloween for his kids. Sean, good luck. We hope. I know he made it past the border, so he's in Donald Trump's America. We'll just have to see if he gets deported between Buffalo and NYC. David, let's just stay on the budget for a moment longer. How high stakes is this for the government? If the communications, is chaotic, if key messages don't get through, if there is a sense of too many plates spinning, maybe all kinds of pledges. Again, this government has a tendency, a habit to make lofty kind of 10-year goals for trade, most recently. What's the consequence? Is there still room in the Carney honeymoon to absorb a fumble here, or is this a moment where the scrutiny starts to have the potential for higher political costs?
Yeah, I mean, I think the stakes are always high, and they're higher now than probably they've been in a really long time because just how anxious the public is. They are looking for guidance and leadership, frankly, on how they're going to get there. Prime Minister himself used the word reassurance, and I've been saying, that's everything right now. Everyone wants to feel reassured that the people who have the authority and the power to do something are focused on that. And I mean, here's a I guess a counter argument that if it is so complicated and so difficult to make sense of what this is, in a way that actually lessens the potential impact, right? That if the primary message that comes out of this budget is mismanagement or fiscal chaos or look at the size of this deficit, in a way that's problematic for the government. In another way, I've argued it might create a space for them to have a debate about who's best able to deal with that crisis. But I think that what we're seeing in the data is if you voted Liberal in the spring, you're still, for the most part, have favorable views towards the prime minister. You are almost entirely obsessed with Donald Trump. And so, the events of even the last week where Trump has, postponed negotiations, where, they're clinking glasses down in Korea and not really talking all that much and having meetings with the Chinese president, all of that might overshadow, the fiscal story that comes out of the budget, because I think the problem for the government things are moving so quick that they probably had to recalibrate in some way about the story they're telling about how they're going to protect people from just that uncertainty still around trade. So stakes are high, but I think that the complexity of this ultimately means we won't know until a few days after this budget what impact it's had on how people feel about Mr. Carney and the government itself.
Final question in this segment of the show for you, Amanda, and it's just to build on what David just said. There's this strange political relationship that Carney now has with Trump. When things are going well with Trump and we're getting ministers talking about imminent deals and other things, it seems as if Carney doesn't get that lift, that kind of anxiety pulse that David, I think, accurately describes that we're in right now, because the trade talks have broken off, because Trump is giving us the cold shoulder. To what extent does going into the budget and in the immediate aftermath, does the Canada-U.S. relationship and Carney's calibration and how he communicates with Trump and about what's happening with the future of those negotiations, to what extent is that maybe what the budget's going to live and die on?
I don't know if the budget will live and die on that from a pure like Canadian domestic political perspective. I think from a calculus by the Liberal government itself on do they fall or do they not? Because for all the the noise around, oh, the Conservatives are going headed towards election, the NDP are going to do it, the Bloc aren't being reasonable. At the end of the day, it is the government of the day's job in a minority situation to put forward a budget that can work with the other parties. If we have the specter of another significant dust up with the U.S., or there's an opportunity, candidly, for the current government to raise that specter among those voters who flocked to Mark Carney because he is viewed by the vast majority of Canadians as the best person to deal with Trump. And you can argue whether he's been successful over the last 7 months, but people still view him that way. I think they still see him in that if you compare him to Poilievre and, well, the non-existent NDP leader, and the Bloc are separatists, so it's not even an option. It benefits them. And I think the bigger we have a fight with the US, the more that we can raise that. I think the more likely we are to go into an election, because I think that is the best opportunity the Liberals are going to have, right? 6 months from now, the economy is going to be in a worse place. In a year from now, the NDP are probably going to have a leader. They'll get off their feet to a certain extent. So, as odd as it sounds, it's to their benefit to go now. It's to their benefit to have a fight with President Trump, so long as it doesn't grossly impact the country to some detrimental factor they're seeing is over rotating. But thus far, and I see David nodding, I think Canadians are giving and continue to give their prime minister a lot of space in this relationship and a lot of trust.
Yeah, well said. We're going to say goodbye to our complimentary listeners and viewers now, and encourage you to join the Hub as a hero or fellow. You can do that right now on our website. We'll send you a link immediately by email to listen to the back half of the Roundtable in conversation with David Frum and all of our other premium audio. You can do that for as little as $1 a week. Pro tip, subscription rates are going up as early as next week. So effectively a flash sale. If you wait until next week, you're going to pay $2 a week. Wow, really expensive. But you can get it for $1 right now, and it'll last for a year. And you'll get Amanda and David's show with Sean, our new politics podcast that's going great guns each and every week, too. So a quick bye-bye and then a hello. Here's that bye-bye. This video has been brought to you by Airbnb. A big thank you to Airbnb for sponsoring the Hub's YouTube channel this month. It's great to be the beneficiaries of their support. Here at the Hub, we talk a lot about the housing crisis ongoing in the country. As we know, there are people out there that think that short-term rentals are to blame for taking supply off the market, but here at the Hub, we can feel that that doesn't make sense. Consider for a moment that the median number of nights an Airbnb is hosting someone in Canada as a guest is 55. These, frankly, aren't full-time rental properties. They are Canadians trying to get by like the rest of us by finding some additional income through renting out a property they own. Government data supports this. Statistics Canada recently reported the amount of Airbnbs that could actually be converted into long-term homes accounts for only 0.6% of Canada's housing stock. Canada needs solutions to tackle the whole housing market, not just 0.6% of it. We agree. Learn more at airbnb.ca/closer look.